Assalamualaikum
Assalamualaikum
warahmatullahi
warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh.
wabarakatuh. My name is Nabila Henani,
My name is Muhammad Faris Masiga.
and today we're going to talk about Ibn Taymiyyah and his political thought. So in our discussion, it contains of background, biography of Ibn Taymiyyah, the concept of state and state leadership of Ibn Taymiyyah's thoughts on modern Islamic political thought, and conclusion. And the background will be explained by Faris.
So I'm here, I will explain the background of this topic. The existence of humans as social beings entrusted with the task of the caliphate has political responsibility in order to maintain benefit, security, and order. So the orderly human life is far from chaos, caused by the emergence of many human desires, with different circulation and resolution even causing one conflict each other and sometimes causing wars. There are differences in the structures of political throughout the history of human civilization, both Muslim and non-Muslim, so that paying attention to the importance of the state, head of state, the basis of state, form of the state, and etc. is always the discussion and analysis of experts. The existence of the state, the head of state, or imam or caliph, has become an in-depth debate and study, thus presenting quality works in the field of constitutionality. When experts try to discuss the state order in Islam, for example, it can be seen from the perspective of Mazhab analysis. Among the Shia Imamiyah, Shia 12 and Shia 7, the existence of this region, leadership over Imam, is the pillar of Islam, or Al-Qalayani. Some even call it the pillar of faith. According to another view, Sunnis, for example, the problem of Imana is a problem of furu', whose existence is in the context of Hirasa al-Din, or maintaining religion, and al-Dunya strategy, or ruling the world. To find out the products of Islamic political thought, or to be assertive towards Islamic figures, it can be traced to works written by experts in the political field, since the time political problem in Islam is different. In terms of the mechanism for electing the head of state, throughout its history, there have been no standard rules, such as whether the existence of Islamic government is explicitly stated or not.
And the emergence of this difference of opinion is due to the absence of standard rules in the election of Al-Khulafa ar-Rashidun, and also the election of the Caliph afterward. Even Islamic countries and their current government system also have differences. On this basis, countries with Muslim populations today are not the same in state administration. However, this does not mean that previous scholars did not conceptualize an Islamic state. Muslim scholars since the first century have written about this concept of Islamic governance. Later came Ibn Taymiyyah's theory of government in the 7th century, which is said to underestimate the Caliphate theory. His critique was based on the fact that he rejected the notion that the Caliphate had no constitutional justification for the Quran. The Quran describes the need for government and power in particular, but does not outline the constitutional decisions of Islamic law. While this rejection, Ibn Taymiyyah gave an alternative thought that in Islamic theory, the key issue is not the Caliphate institution, but Sharia law. While Caliphate is said to be founded on Sharia law, it has only acquired a certain credibility from its historical creation that does not adhere further to the Sharia's key teachings. In Islam, the state plays a major role in achieving the Sharia objectives as seen as in the Quran and in As-Sunnah. And next, biographies of Ibn Taymiyyah will be explained again by Faris.
Biographies of Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah was born on the 10th of Rabiul Awal in 611 Hijriah, in a city called Haran, Syria. He spent his childhood in Haran for 6 years. At the same time as the Tartar attack on the city of Haran, his entire family moved to Syria. His family left Haran with a bull cart that was passed down from generation to generation from their ancestors. Eventually, the family survived to Damascus, the capital of Syria. In Damascus, a very well-known educational institution affiliated with the Hanbali school has been established. The founder of this educational institution is Abu Faraj Abdul Wahid al-Faqih al-Hanbali, who is a student of the famous Hanbali school figure, Abu Ya'la. Thus, during Ibn Taymiyyah's time, the Hanbali school was founded, whose popularity spread throughout Damascus. In Damascus, Ibn Taymiyyah successfully completed his studies under his father's guidance. The study is based on points from the Hanbali school of thought. Apart from learning from his father, he also studied from the sheikhs in various disciplines. It is not surprising that Ibn Taymiyyah mastered various fields of science ranging from Islamic science to philosophy. Ibn Taymiyyah lived in the midst of an intense and prolonged struggle with all the effects of political and religious decline. He found the holiness and glory of faith. He lives with a soul filled with a sense of faith and belief in greatness and height of Islam. In the time of Ibn Taymiyyah, there was a crusade coupled with the invasion of Tartars, so that sometimes he fought with a sword and sometimes with a pen. His life was always colored with jihad continuously, so that he took him to prison in Damascus. Al-Zahabi commented on Ibn Taymiyyah that he was a successful reader. It was proficient in hadith and fiqh at the relatively young age of 17. In addition, he also mastered the science of tafsir, usul fiqh, and all Islamic science, both usul furu globally except qira'ah. And next topic will explain by Humairo.
Now I'm going to talk about the concept of state and state leadership of Ibn Taymiyyah. So Muslim thinkers saw the concept of the state and state leadership in different ways. For example, Sunnis claim that establishing a state is not one of the religious principles and practices as believed by the Shia. According to them, imamah is one of the details related to the actions of a believer, because to them, the ummah is ordered to appoint an imam through al-sam or adil. What is meant by al-sam, according to Komaruddin Khan, is Al-Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma, or deliberation. The Mu'tazilah's view contradicts the Sunni view. Mu'tazilah argues that the obligation to uphold imamah can be proven by reason. Meanwhile, the Shia group also rejected the reason because it was considered insufficient. They argue that imamah is the lutf or blessing of Allah for his servants. Ibn Taymiyyah himself agreed with the Sunnis. He stated that regulating public affairs is one of the most important religious obligations. However, that does not mean that religion cannot exist without a state. Human interests, according to him, cannot be fulfilled except by joining in a society, gathering mutual interest. When gathered, there must be a leader. This rational argument is also strengthened by several foundations of the Prophet's traditions. An example is the saying of the Prophet that if there are three people traveling, then one of them must be the leader. Ibn Taymiyyah did not base the ijma method as the reason for the obligation to establish a state. However, he emphasized more on efforts to create human welfare and implement Islamic law. A religion that has a set of laws, commands, and prohibitions. Allah commands people to carry out Amar Ma'ruf and leave crime, jihad, justice, hajj, order society, help people who are persecuted and others. Everything cannot be done well except in the presence of power and leaders. Ibn Taymiyyah emphasized that managing the people is a religious obligation. Because of that, he actually considered the caliphate system to be unimportant, that the institution of the caliphate could be abolished. Ibn Taymiyyah argued that humans are creatures who need each other to meet all their needs. It is impossible with one person to meet his needs without the need or to live side by side with other people. Therefore, each other needs each other to get the necessities of life. The desire to make ends meet in order to survive, and to get it requires cooperation, prompting them to gather somewhere so they can help and give to one another. It was this process, he argues, that led to the formation of cities and ultimately states. That way, according to Ibn Taymiyyah, enforcing government is a religious obligation, not because of consensus considerations, although he also acknowledges that cooperation and assistance are pillars of society. His command is not solely based on the consideration of agreement, but on Allah's order to help each other in goodness and not in committing sins and crimes. Next, Faris.
Ibn Taymiyyah's thoughts on modern Islamic political thought. Ibn Taymiyyah, who was one of the figures following the Hanbali school of thought in many ways and a Salafi on a broader basis, was very influential among conservative Sunnis and in a modern period among liberals and conservatives. A number of Ibn Taymiyyah's thoughts are relevant to society and political because, according to him, religion and state are closely related, or al-Islam, al-Din wa al-Dawlah. Ibn Taymiyyah's political thought in his non-rigid understanding of the concept of the caliphate is that all forms of state are allowed as long as the aims of a nation, such as humanity, are accomplished. Justice is achieved and the rule of God in Sharia is applied. In connection with the concept of a head of state or caliph, Ibn Taymiyyah provides opportunities for pluralism in the Islamic world, where according to him, Muslims do not have to have only one caliph, but there are several caliphs in several countries, which is the territory of each caliph. This view is quite realistic considering that at that time of Ibn Taymiyyah, de facto it did not only consist of one caliphate, but consisted of one more than one caliphate and several kingdoms or dynasties, such as the Seljuk, Ayyubid, Mamluk dynasties, and until the reign of the Mongol Changtai dynasty. The geographic fragmentation of the Islamic world is a reality. Each part has become an independent political entity. The classical theory of a universal caliphate cannot be accepted and dispel this fact. Muslim unity can only be realized through cooperation between political entities, both regional and international. For that reason, it is not important to push the Islamic world into a single political entity. And the last explanation will be explaining by Humaira.
Okay, so our discussion comes to end. The political thinking of Ibn Taymiyyah is so significant even today in the history of Islamic politics, with his theory that the Prophet's rule was the Nubuwah regime and not Imamah. The Imamah only existed after Prophet's death, and he revealed that this was new ideas and reform ideas. Ibn Taymiyyah had boldly supported or rejected the leadership structure of the Caliphate and Imamah. He does not want to make people just objects in a war, but also wants people to be his counter subjects.
For Ibn Taymiyyah, the mechanism or system for the appointment of a head of state is not very important. The important thing is that the person who occupies the position must be truly trustworthy and fair. Ibn Taymiyyah requires two things for the head of state, namely having the qualification of strength, al-quwa, and integrity or al-amanah. This strength and integrity is obtained through the means of umubayyah, or oath of allegiance, given by al-shahwaka. Ibn Taymiyyah prefers a democratic form of government. It's just what Ibn Taymiyyah wants is a constitutional democracy based on Sharia values and based on the wishes of the people, and gives people space for the participants in politics. Such a model, according to Ibn Taymiyyah, can embody the values of justice. His thinking, according to the author, is relevant and in line with current popular democratic principles, and can even have implication for being a reference for statesmen to build a government structure. With the above conception, it can be formulated that the state practice is not based on formal or textual texts, but is based on benefits that can be felt by many people. Thus, the foundation of maslahat has a role in this state issue. And these are the references that we use. Thank you so much for watching. Assalamualaikum
Wassalamualaikum
warahmatullahi
warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh.
wabarakatuh.